Last night, I gave a Devar Torah teaching on what we are encountering in the world with anti-Semitism. So this morning is part 2 of that, with a focus on the next generation and the state of Israel. I remember how I felt on May 17th, 2021, when the Black Lives Matter tweet went out. Black Lives Matter stands in solidarity with Palestinians. We are a movement committed to ending settler colonialism in all forms and will continue to advocate for Palestinian liberation. As an educator who teaches about racism, I was personally devastated. The message was, in our racial justice work, if you support Israel, we don't want you. Later reporting clarified that Black Lives Matter did not support Hamas, a terrorist organization, but did support Palestinians. However, a poll in July of that year showed that 53% of Palestinians support Hamas. A year later, Palestinian support for Hamas has proven consistent. In May of this year, at a student election at Birzeit University in the West Bank, the Hamas student group won 28 out of 51 seats at the student council, 55%. In the pro-peace camp, unfortunately, support is rather pitiful. Only 5 seats were won by the Palestinian Progressive Democratic Student poll, less than 10%. But we stand in solidarity with a minority of Palestinians doesn't make a good tweet. I derive no pleasure from any of this. I wish the numbers in the West Bank were reversed. And please don't mistake my intention in analyzing this tweet. I believe Black Lives Matter, full stop. As a human rights statement, it's as basic as it gets. We must fight racism in all its forms, and we shouldn't say all lives matter because it isn't all lives who are deemed expendable in the United States. We need a true reckoning with racism in our country. The murder of George Floyd and so many others should shock everyone of conscience. However, in racial justice circles, when Israel is explained as colonialism and compared to British and India, or Great Britain and India, or South Africa, it is a dangerous misunderstanding of the region. Misdiagnosing a problem makes it worse. And also, what is a Jew of color supposed to do if they love Israel or are Israeli? Split themselves in half? Get discriminated against in stereo? My fear is that many of our Jewish American teenagers are getting their information about Israel from social justice movements like Black Lives Matter and Amnesty International, and not from synagogues or personal experience. And while those movements may be doing awesome work, when it comes to Israel, there is a pitfall. I support any Palestinian or Israeli effort at coexistence, dialogue, education, and ensuring human rights. However, I also believe that much of the criticism of Israel from the left is founded upon a combination of ignorance of history and projection. Studying history takes real effort, and it is much easier to chant catchy political slogans like, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." It gives the chanter a feeling of worldwide solidarity and belonging. And projection is when you look at the world through what you know, that these people in uniform look like those people in uniform, and these policies look like those policies. But history and context matter. And as Susie Linfield of The Atlantic wrote, Palestine is not Ferguson. I'm a Jewish American, a social justice activist, and a Zionist. I grew up outside Baltimore, and I drank the social justice Kool-Aid, and I believe in universal human rights. I was taught to protest against racism, and my rabbinical mentors marched on Washington in 1963. I also remember marching to free Soviet Jewry, and I studied the Holocaust and went to Germany as a teenager. My home was a liberal democratic home. I went to Israel as a college student and then I went back as a first-year student at Hebrew Union College. I came of age during the time of Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin. Rabin's assassination was personally devastating. I will never forgive Benjamin Netanyahu for inciting his supporters as they chanted, "Death to Rabin." Now, years later, I have Israelis in my family, and we have 2 family members serving as lone soldiers in the Israeli Defense Forces. But if you are 30 years old or younger, then you do not have my experience of Israel. You certainly do not have the experience of those who are older who lived through the Six-Day War or Yom Kippur War when Israel was truly the underdog fighting for its existence. If you're 30 years old or younger and you've never been to Israel, your experience with Israel has consisted of watching reports on the building of more and more settlements, Netanyahu's corruption, the racist Itamar Ben-Gvir leading chants of "kill the Arabs" through the streets, and women of the wall being harassed and assaulted. That's the experience of Israel through the headlines. And we need to admit something painful. Those events that I just listed, they're not the work of anti-Semites. These are realities that we, the Jewish people, have created and done to ourselves. But now, add on top of that the breathless reports of the numbers of dead children in Gaza, the bias against Israel in social justice circles, and the anti-Semitic messaging that floods the internet, and it is a wonder that any Jewish teenager supports Israel at all. Why should they if that's all they know? We as a congregation must be a counterpoint to this narrative. We believe and work for social justice causes. We promote education about racism, work to reduce gun violence, hunger, and homelessness, and want to protect and expand women's rights and our LGBTQ family. We are also Zionist, supporting Israel and trying to make it live up to its ideals and full potential. We believe the two go together. It's not either or, it's both and. Too often, we can reflect the polarization that exists within our politics. When it comes to Zionism, people on the right are often considered bigots, and people on the left get called traitors. Sometimes it's actually true, but often these reflect runaway passions. In truth, Judaism has always reflected particularistic concern for the Jewish people and universal care for human rights. Hillel said, "If I am not for myself, who will be for me? If I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when?" We therefore need to do 3 things in order to speak to the next generation about Israel. We need to tell Israel's story better. We need to bring more people to Israel. And we need to support people in Israel who share our values. Israel's story can be summarized in a phrase from its anthem, "Hatikva lihiyot am chofshi ba'artzenu," to be a free people in our land. Here's my attempt to tell Israel's story in a nutshell. Returning to the land and founding the state of Israel was the great liberation movement of the Jewish people in the modern era. We are one of the indigenous peoples of the Middle East, and we have always been connected to the land through the Hebrew Bible and for 2,000 years in our prayers. Jews in the past 2 centuries were refugees, fleeing anti-Semitism in Europe and Arab lands, and hundreds of thousands of Jewish people moved to Israel and founded a country when they had nowhere else to go. They fought for a home, created a safe haven for Jewish people from all over the world, and founded a struggling democracy. They attempted to make peace with their neighbors again and again, and all their efforts were rejected. During Israel's history, there have been failures and mistakes. Israel, by and large, gave up on making peace with the Palestinians in the early 2000s after trying for 60 years. We still hope there is a way forward. Right-wing nationalists have grown in power in Israeli life. Israel's democracy is shaky. Corrupt politicians, including prime ministers, have been indicted. Many of these problems are happening not only in Israel, but in the United States and all around the world. Nevertheless, as much as we expect of ourselves, by being rooted in our Jewish ethics, we cannot hold Israel to an impossible standard to which we would never hold any other country. And currently, Israel is under tremendous pressure as it remains the object of anti-Semitism among the nations and faces an existential threat from Iran and its proxies. Israel must remain in a constant state of readiness to defend itself. Despite its challenges, Israel has also been a light to the nations in many ways. From reinventing the Hebrew language, to humanitarian aid, to making the desert bloom, to radical technological and medical advancements, to arts, literature, and music, Israel has given the world much more than it has taken. Israelis are a wildly diverse people of different ethnic backgrounds, skin tones, political beliefs, and religious practices. The only place where you can find women in government and a pride parade in the Middle East is in Israel. And you need to go to Israel so that you can experience Israel for yourself. That's my Israel elevator pitch. It might take a lot of floors, hopefully a very tall building, but that's the best I can do. Which brings me to the second thing we must do, which is we must bring as many people to Israel as possible. Once someone has gone to Israel as a teenager, or as a young adult on birthright, they get it. They see Israel's complexities. They meet the 19 and 20-year-old soldiers. They experience the living history and vibrant and dynamic culture. They also see what it is like to have rocket shelters and mandatory military service. People who demonize and condemn Israel are overwhelmingly people who have never been there. If you truly encounter the country and talk to the people, and this goes for talking with Palestinians and Israeli Arabs as well, you get a deeper understanding of the complex reality on the ground. You discover that the situation is much more analogous to India and Pakistan, not India and Great Britain. So make sure you, your children, and your grandchildren go to Israel. It's a mitzvah. Finally, we need to support Israelis who share our values. Rabbi Anat Hoffman, who is the leader of Women of the Wall, once said to me, when Israel is struggling and you don't like what the current Israeli government is doing, that's not the time to walk away. Just the opposite. That's the time to double down and get more involved. Give tzedakah to Israel and choose for yourself where you want to give. If you want to plant trees, do that. If you want to give to the hungry or orphans of Israel, do that. If you want to help Women of the Wall, please do that. If you want to give to peace initiatives that foster dialogue between Israelis and Palestinians, please give to Parent Circle, Shorashim, or Seeds of Peace. Don't abandon all of the good that Israelis are doing because you are repulsed by certain groups or even the government. We can be in solidarity with Israel even when we are not in complete agreement. I pray for a more secure Israel and a peace movement to grow. I pray that each person is safe with dignity and opportunity and is respected as a child of God made in the divine image. I pray that Israel is able to hold back the forces of zealotry, both inside and outside, and stay both a Jewish and democratic country. And I also pray for a renewal of the next generation's relationship to Israel. The next generation needs to find their own connection, but that will only happen if we support it. Shana Tova.